he was laughing, you couldn't help but laugh along with him. And so my hope for this space is that it's filled with that joy. Seated over here is my wonderful Uncle Monroe and his wonderful wife, Peggy. I have the honor of introducing him to say a few words on this special day. Some of you may already know Monroe and Peggy, but I did want to say a few words to give some insight into his character, what he's meant to our family, and the loving legacy he carries of his dad, Joe. Monroe's been the patriarch and leader of our family for a long time. He's been that important voice for us, honest, kind, and wise. Our family get-togethers are always filled with stories of him growing up around the time of the Great Depression in a small town in southeast Oklahoma, 2 hours from the nearest temple in Tulsa. In spite of this, Monroe grew up with a strong Jewish identity and a passionate dedication to the Jewish people. Every Sunday, his family would travel to Sherman, Texas to be with extended family, where I believe those values that he holds dear were shaped. I've also had the privilege of traveling to Israel with Monroe and Peggy and to see the groundbreaking of Weingarten Park in Givo Bar, Israel. Hundreds of families now think of this place as a central gathering spot for their daily life. By some of the things I've seen from him over the years, I've gotten to watch Monroe in that he's a man of action. Much of the work he does is behind the scenes and it's out of the spotlight, and its purpose is to lift others up and make their lives better. Through the years, he's supported many causes, but I believe he'll elaborate more on this. I think he's most proud of what's happening right here in Santa Rosa. I'll let him tell you a little bit more about that. But lastly, I do want to say, I see many shared characteristics between Monroe and his dad, Joe. Commitment to family, kindness, gentleness of spirit. And so without any further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce my uncle, Monroe Weingarten.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much. It's just wonderful to be here today. It's for this grand opening. It's a wonderful day for Peggy and me. It's both an ending and a beginning. It's the ending of phase one, which is the development and construction, and the beginning of phase two. This Chabad Center becoming more and more a center of Jewish life here in Santa Rosa. This whole thing began 11 years ago. Peggy and I used to live on Carrier Road over in Sonoma. And one day I was out in the front yard. I looked out at the front gate, and there was this man waving. He had a beard and a black hat, and I sort of got it. But I walked over to the gate, introduced myself. He introduced himself, and that was the beginning of a wonderful, wonderful friendship. Over the 11 years since then, Rabbi and I have had just too many to count wonderful visits. I have learned so much from this man. We've become good friends, and along the way, I would go over to visit him sometimes at Bethard's. You've all been to Bethard's. And I would have very pleasant meetings with him there, but I'd kind of scratch my head as I was leaving and say, Chabad can do better in Santa Rosa. And I came home and told my wife, I said, you know, honey, I think we ought to do something to help the rabbi get a proper home for Chabad. And we decided right then and there that we would buy a building, donate it to the rabbi. So I went to the rabbi. I told him about this. I said, but Rabbi, this is just the beginning. I said, any building that we buy is going to require a lot of work. I said, it's going to require remodeling. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm out of breath, excuse me. I said, an older building. I said, any older building subject to new codes, new requirements. And I said, remodeling an old building can be very expensive. I said, maybe even several $100,000. I said, do you think you can go out in the Sonoma, the Santa Rosa community and raise that kind of money? Well, folks, he didn't hesitate 1 minute. He said, yes, I can. And you know, I've always loved that can-do attitude, you know, yes we can. I'm reminded of my other hero, Theodore Herzl, his visions of the state of Israel. So if you will it, it is no dream. And I said, Rabbi, so I would say today, Rabbi, you willed it. It is no dream. It's here. It's up today. Joseph Weingarten. I'll just tell you, folks, this man and his wife, Alti, and let me say this. Whenever I say Rabbi, I'm really referring to Rabbi Ann Alti. She's just a fantastic woman, an amazing woman, and a real important part of this whole thing. So here it is, 3 years after the journey began. A lot of you are probably wondering, who was this Joseph Weingarten anyway? Who was this man? Well, let me see if I can kind of tell you a little bit. I think I can, because Joseph Weingarten was my dad. He was a wonderful man. He was a good man. He was a wonderful father. I miss him every day. Joseph was the youngest of the 5 children of Mendel and Esther Weingarten of Sherman, Texas. Mendel and Esther had come over as young kids in about 1880 from Przemysl in Galicia, in modern Poland. They had arrived in New York with hardly any money. They worked there for about a year. Didn't like the big city, had always heard about the great American West, Texas in particular. So one day they just pulled up stakes in New York and headed for El Paso, Texas. Mendel, this was in about 1885. Mendel arrived there, bought a wagon, bought a horse, filled up the wagon with pots and pans and shoelaces and coveralls, and set out selling his wares along the railroad lines in Texas. Along the way, he and my grandmother, Esther, ran across the little town of Sherman, Texas, county seat of Grayson County, about 60 miles north of Dallas, and that's where they decided to settle. And over the years, the Weingarten name has become a very respected name in Grayson County. The Weingarten home there, which Rabbi has seen, Rabbi has been there and seen it, was designated historical landmark by the Texas Historical Society. It's now being used as law offices, but it's a beautiful old building. I love to go there and just look at it because it brings back such wonderful memories. At any rate, Joseph Wingate was my dad, and he was the youngest of the 5 children. He was the only one that they could afford to send to college. So he went away to the University of Texas, graduated in 1926, then went on to law school at USC, University of Southern California, in Los Angeles. That's where he met my mother, Helen Schwab, Los Angeles. Dad graduated from law school in 1929. I think you all know what 1929 was. That was the year of the big crash, the beginning of the Great American Depression. I don't know why they called it great. It was terrible. It was a terrible year for a young man to be graduating and looking for his first job. Dad looked in Los Angeles. Not having any success. His older brother, Jake, told him one day, he said, Joe, he said, I understand that you're bringing in some oil fields, gas fields up in Oklahoma, just about 100 miles north of Sherman. And he said, I think you ought to look into that. So my dad did. And figuring that he didn't have very far to fall if he fell. So he and my mother, they got married, and they left Los Angeles, and they headed for McAlester, Oklahoma, county seat of Grayson County, of Choctaw County, Pittsburgh County, I'm sorry. And that's where my sister Joan, Tom's mother, his mother, and I were born. McAlester, Oklahoma, a sweet little town. At any rate, my dad, when he arrived there, he opened a little office. My mother opened a dress and millinery shop, and that was the beginning of Joseph Weingarten family in McAlester, Oklahoma. Dad was a very respected man in that town, and it's kind of interesting in that little town. There are only 6 Jewish families, and in the surrounding area, there were maybe 20 Jewish families. And so we had a little house. It was just a residence with a big wooden Star of David out in front. And on holidays, we'd have services there. We'd have community seders. And it was a very nice and loving community. But at any rate, that was Dad was a highly respected man in that little town. He was on the school board. He was a director, on board of directors of First National Bank. He was president of his Rotary Club. He was the kind of man that in the town, when anything affecting the Jews came up, the town elders would come to my dad and talk about that. And I remember several instances where it was a little dicey, and they looked at my dad as the peacemaker. And that was the kind of man he was. He was a moral compass. Growing up, Dad was a moral compass. He just had a few rules that he lived by. He lived by one basic question: is it right or is it wrong? And the 10 Commandments. I would hear the commandments over and over again from him in various ways. And the golden rule. My dad was the kindest man I think I've ever known. Kindest, most honest man I've ever known. As I say, I miss him. You know, just a year before he died, he and I went to Israel together. And that was just a wonderful experience. We thank God we had those 10 days together before he died. So, in his final years, Dad moved to Northern California Bay Area to be close to family. And he loved, remember, on weekends, He loved to come to the wine country, and he loved this town. So it's fitting. Just maybe up there. So in summation, folks, let me just say that Peggy and I want to thank you all for helping make this come true, making this dream come true, and God bless you all. Baruch Hashem.